and I have a practice in Milford, Connecticut, and I do trademarks and copyrights as well as patents. I better talk in here. So, what I call this presentation was the pros and cons of provisional patent applications. And it's a small group, so if you have questions, please jump in. Um, but here's my contact info. And so, start off the types of patent applications. You have a provisional, which we'll talk about in more detail, but that's like an informal patent application that only lasts for 1 year. Um, the patent office will accept it, so you file it with the patent office. On the day you file it, you get patent pending status. You get a serial number, and you can start using the phrase patent pending with respect to your invention at that point. And also, you can start publicly disclosing it without any adverse effects. Try to sell it, try to license it, monetize it any way you can. There's no reason really to wait until you file the non-provisional. The next type is a non-provisional or regular patent application. Um, it's also called a utility application. Uh, it's your normal type of patent application that protects an invention, the way the invention works. Um, and that's the one that you file it. The day you file it, you also get patent pending status. Uh, but this is the one that the patent office will examine. The patent office does not examine the provisional. The non-provisional, the patent office will examine it. Generally, it can take anywhere from about a year to 2 years or more before they get to your patent application and examine it. And what they do is they do their own patentability search. They find similar patents or patent applications or other prior art that might be out there on the internet or in catalogs to try to determine whether or not your invention is new or not. And then they'll write a paper called an office action. 90% of the time, they'll reject all your claims, and they'll send that office action to you or your attorney, and you have to respond to that office action to prosecute your patent application to try to get it to issue. And that's called the prosecution process. The other type of patent application is a design patent, and this is different from a utility patent application. A design patent only protects the ornamental design of your product. So, for instance, if you had a new shape of a lampshade that worked just like a regular lampshade but just had a cool design, maybe it looks like a teepee or something, you would get a design patent for that. It just protects the way it looks. Or the Nike Air Jordan shoe, that has some design patents on it that just protects the way it looks. The basketball shoe pretty much worked like any other basketball shoe, but it had a unique design and an image basically. But it's a very narrow type of patent application, and you may have heard of these invention submission companies like InventHelp and things. One of the kind of iffy things they would do is they would charge you a lot of money for a patent application and then get you a design patent, which is very easy. It's a very short patent application. There's like maybe 1 page of description because it's all about the drawings for a design patent. And but they'll charge you a ton of money and say, hey, we got you a patent to issue, and it's pretty easy to issue compared to a utility application, but it may be completely wrong type of patent application or issued patent for your invention. So just be aware of the differences between utility and design if you ever hire one of these invention submission companies. And then there's a plant patent application that protects plants and the way you create a new plant. And I've never done one of these, so I don't know a whole lot about them, but I think it has things to do when you, I guess when you shave down a plant and you mix them with other plants. I forget what you call that. What is that called? Do you remember?
Grafting.
Grafting? Is that something like that? Where, yeah, where you're creating new plants. And I guess nowadays you probably do genetically also, but I've never done a plant
Thinking
patent.
about crossbreeding plants?
Well, not well. Maybe. I mean, I remember learning in school where you take a plant, you cut the stem in half, you mix it with another plant, which you had cut the stem in half. You wrap them together, you get a new plant.
So if you have a new breed of plants and you can patent it, why can't I patent a new breed of dog?
You might be able to.
Really?
Yeah, you can't breed. You can't patent a new type of human though. That's against the law right now.
Darn.
But you can't. You might be able. They patented mice.
You can patent mice?
Yeah, there's the Yale mouse, or is it a Harvard mouse? The Harvard mouse, I believe. So it's a mouse that's particularly susceptible to cancer. So it's a very good mouse to try out cancer cures on. And so there's a mouse with this genetic code that Harvard owns, and during it's probably more than 20 years. Patents only last for 20 years nowadays. But during the term of the patent, if anyone got one of these mice and started using it without Harvard's permission, they'd be infringing that patent.
So I could patent a dog that doesn't make poopies, and that way I don't have to walk it?
Probably.
Cool.
Probably.
It's called a stuffed animal.
But you can't do anything with humans yet. That's against the law. That's there's laws written because it's unethical. All right. How you guys doing? Have a seat. So here are some benefits of provisional patent applications. They're generally cheaper. For instance, I charge a flat fee of $1,800 for a provisional patent application. For a normal non-provisional utility patent application, my lowest price is $5,000. So that gives you an idea of the difference in cost. Some patent attorneys and patent agents, they may not give you a break on a provisional because they may want to write a full patent application that costs just as much as a non-provisional, which is fine, but it's much more expensive. And my philosophy is I think people, when they turn to a provisional patent application, they're trying to save money up front in order to test the market for a year. And so that's why I try to limit the cost, but I also limit the amount of time I spend on it also to keep the cost down. Provisionals have a lower filing fee than a non-provisional patent application. If you're a micro entity, what that means is you qualify as a small entity and you make less than $169,000 a year, or the majority of your income comes from teaching at a school, basically. So those are the two ways to become a micro entity. You either teach at or you get your income from a school, or you make less than $169,000. And there's another limitation where you cannot have more than 5 patents in your name that you own. If you work for GE and you signed all the patent applications that you developed for GE to GE, that doesn't count against that 5. But the filing fee for a provisional, if you're a microentity, is $70. For a microentity, for a utility, non-provisional, is $430. So it's much cheaper, and that's the government fee. Provisionals generally can be filed quicker. Sometimes I've run into this where someone's about to give a presentation, present a paper at some conference, and he realizes, oh my goodness, I probably ought to get patent protection on this before I go make this talk in 2 days. And so one option is to file a provisional patent application, just file that paper that he's going to present as a patent application, as a provisional patent application. And that's one reason why you may want to file a provisional. And that'll get you patent pending status, and then if you disclose your invention at the conference, you don't lose your rights to the patent. The one way you lose your rights to your invention is if you publicly disclose it, you generally lose all your international patent rights immediately unless you have filed a patent application first. The U.S. is a little different than most countries. We have a 1-year grace period, so you can publicly disclose it without filing the patent application and still protect your U.S. patent rights as long as you file a patent application within 1 year of that public disclosure or offer for sale. Those are the two things that will start that clock running. But you will lose your international rights immediately if you make a public disclosure. So the best rule of thumb is if you're thinking about patenting and you're thinking about international protection is to keep your invention secret until you file some sort of patent application, either provisional or non-provisional. So if you file a provisional patent application, the next point is it does not count against your 20-year patent term. So if you file a patent terms, what that means is you have a monopoly on your invention for 20 years from the date you file your non-provisional utility patent application. You can file your provisional a year earlier, and that doesn't count against the 20-year term. So that's a nice little benefit right there. Provisional patent applications don't have to comply with a lot of the rules of the patent office. You don't have to have claims in a provisional patent application. You can submit them with photographs and color drawings if you want. A utility non-provisional patent application, you're required to have a background section, an abstract. You have to have claims. You're only allowed to submit black and white drawings. Unless you get a petition allowing you to submit color drawings or color photographs. So that's another reason why provisionals can be a lot cheaper. You don't have to comply with a lot of these rules. Yeah,
Are plant patents an exception? You could do color with plants, right?
I'm not sure about that. You may be right. I don't know. I think I remember seeing photographs of plant patents with photographs showing flowers in color. I think I've seen that, but I don't know for sure. Yes, sir.
So if you get a provisional patent and it looks quite viable for the world, and you can only have the provisional for the United States just to get your feet wet in it, what would happen if somebody in Europe or some other part of the world wants to say, me too, on that?
So the good thing is, in the United States, when you file a provisional or a non-provisional patent application, you get the same benefits internationally. So if you file a provisional in the United States and then you publicize your invention the day after, let's say, as long as you file what's called the PCT application, a Patent Cooperation Treaty, that's your international patent application, as long as you file that within 1 year of your provisional filing date, you're protected in all countries that are members of that treaty, which is something like 131 countries. And that's basically every country you'd really be interested in. So you're protected that way. Same way, if you skipped the provisional and you went straight to a non-provisional patent application, as long as you file your PCT within 1 year of your non-provisional, you're okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the jump from, say, $5,000 for the provisional to the international, what's the difference in price?
So it was $1,800 for a provisional. A non-provisional starts at $5,000 and goes up. Okay. Generally, what I do is I basically just take the full non-provisional patent application and just take that same application and file it as a PCT. So I charge $1,000 for that. There's not a whole lot of work I put into it. But the government filing fee is quite expensive. It's $2,800 generally for the PCT government filing fee. Yeah, that's pretty expensive. Whereas in the United States, a microentity filing fee is $430. So it's a big jump there. Yes, sir.
And would this apply if you ultimately intend to get a utility patent?
The provisional, yeah. What a lot of people do is they file a provisional first. They have 1 year with the provisional, and as long as they file a utility patent application within 1 year, they're okay. The utility can claim priority back to your provisional filing date. So that's usually what people do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, they just don't differentiate really as far as the deadline for the 1 year.
There's a couple of deadlines we've been talking about. So are you talking about the public disclosure deadline or the deadline to file your international patent application?
The latter, the international.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So if you file a provisional first, you have to file your PCT. If you want international protection, I say you have to, but you should file your PCT application within 1 year of your provisional.
Okay, and you changed your language to should, so they fudge on it for...
Well, there's a fudge in that you could file a PCT later than 1 year, but you won't be able to claim priority to your first U.S. patent application. So it's possible your own patent application might be used against you as prior art in the international patent offices.
Only in international, not with
Not in the
domestic.
U.S., no. Unless, for some reason, you fail to file your non-provisional patent application within 1 year, then you lose any rights you had under your provisional. Okay. It's a little complicated, but the rule of thumb is you got to file within 1 year of your first U.S. patent application. You have to file your PCT application within 1 year of your
That's
first
most
US.
critical in an international environment,
Yes.
but not so critical nationally.
Well, nationally, so if you file your provisional, and then a year later you fail to file your U.S. non-provisional, it's as if you never filed any patent application. So you don't have any patent pending rights. You can't claim priority to any previous, so you lose your rights. So it's very important in the U.S. to file your U.S. patent application within 1 year, if you want to go forward with it. Now, one reason why you may file a provisional is you want a year to test the market, to see if you can get investors to invest, maybe see if you can license it, or see if anyone's interested in your invention. And at the end of the year, if you discover that no one likes your invention, you're not going to be able to make money at it, and then at that point you may decide, I'm not going to file a U.S. non-provisional patent application because it's just not worth it. It's not going anywhere. And so that's another good reason to file a provisional, is to test the market first. All right. Non-provisionals are secret. So when you file that at the patent office, if you end up not filing a non-provisional patent application, it goes abandoned and it's never published. It remains at the patent office, but no one can see it except perhaps workers at the patent office, but the public cannot access it. Now, if you file a provisional patent application and then a year later you file your U.S. patent application claiming priority to your provisional, what normally happens is your U.S. patent application will publish 18 months after your first filing date, and then it's available to the public. So people will be able to see your non-provisional patent application 18 months after your first filing date. And if they're a little bit sophisticated, they can dig into public pair and see your provisional also. So basically, if you want to keep your invention secret, you generally don't want to file a patent. All right? There's other ways to protect it. You may want to use trade secrets. Or if you want to keep it a secret as long as possible, one thing you can do is when you file your non-provisional patent application, you can request non-publication. What that means is your patent application won't be published 18 months later, but if your patent never issues, then it will be published and it will be available to the public. But that may give you an extra 2 or 3 years of secrecy if you want to try to develop your invention without everyone else looking to see what patent applications you may have filed already. Right? More benefits of provisional applications. So it gives you a 1 year delay before you have to file the more expensive non-provisional patent application. All right. This is, people do this all the time. The next point, you can add new material when you file your non-provisional patent application. So generally, what happens when you file a provisional is the inventor still keeps on working on his or her invention, and he or she may come up with new patentable subject matter. He may have improved the invention somehow, and so we can capture all those improvements in the non-provisional patent application. We can just add all the new stuff he's developed when we file that non-provisional, or the PCT application if that's the route he's going. The one thing you have to be aware of, though, is you only get the benefit of your provisional filing date for the stuff you disclosed in your provisional. When you disclose new material when you file your non-provisional a year later, you only get the benefit of the new filing date, the one that's a year later. So what that means is if someone else has independently invented something just like your invention, but he invented it after you filed your provisional, but before you filed your non-provisional. Any of the new stuff in the non-provisional might be invalidated by what he invented during that time period, during that 1 year time period. And for a provisional, you get patent pending status, just like you would with a non-provisional. So you can mark your products patent pending. On your marketing materials, you can put patent pending. On your website, you can put patent pending, even though it's just a provisional that is relatively cheap. So what are some disadvantages of provisionals? Provisionals only protect what is disclosed. So, we have got two competing things we're going after here for a provisional. I'm trying to keep prices low, but that means I'm spending less time on a provisional. But if we want to disclose a lot of material in a provisional, like maybe your invention has 30 embodiments, 30 different ways to use your invention, that's going to drive up the cost. And so in order to keep the cost down, we may say, okay, we're just going to describe 1 or 2 embodiments. Those other 28 embodiments, if they're not disclosed in the provisional, you don't get patent protection on those different embodiments. So that's one thing you got to consider, is that if you have a very difficult patent application that we have to write, is it worth it to try to save money by filing a provisional that's not detailed enough? Yes, sir.
So I got this patent and it says it has an execution date and a date recorded.
Yeah.
And the execution date is 1996. The date recorded is 2008. What does that mean?
That probably has to do with assignments. So when the patent was probably assigned to somebody, so the execution date is probably the date that the assignment was signed. And then when you record it at the patent office, it could be much after the execution date, the date you signed the assignment. All right. Okay, the next point is the USPTO does not examine the provisional. Thus, you're not going to get any indication of patentability from the USPTO. So when you file the provisional, they'll accept it, they'll give you a serial number, but they won't examine that provisional. They won't do a search. They just hold it for a year. Sometimes if you mess up really bad, they'll request some more information. Like perhaps if whatever you submit is not legible, they may request another copy or something. But they're not going to examine it for patentability, all right? So you're not going to know whether or not you have a good chance of patentability or not from the patent office. So when you go to the next step of filing the non-provisional, if you want to claim the benefit of your provisional filing date in your non-provisional, the claim subject matter in your non-provisional must have support in the provisional patent application. So that's just another way of saying if you add a whole bunch of new stuff in your non-provisional that is not supported or described in the provisional that you filed a year earlier, you're only going to get the benefit of the new filing date. That's a year later. But if your invention or your patent application pretty much covers the exact same stuff that was covered in your provisional, then you will get the benefit of your earlier filing date. And so this pretty much has to do with, what if someone independently invents, after your provisional filing date, but before your non-provisional, will that invention invalidate whatever's in your non-provisional? It depends on whether or not your provisional had support or your non-provisional had support in the provisional. Any questions? No. So still on disadvantages. When you file your provisional, a lot of times people are trying to save money, but one thing you cannot delay is your PCT application, your international patent application will still be due 1 year after your provisional filing date. So if you're trying to save money, you're still got this PCT and you want international patent protection, you're still going to have to shell out the cash for the PCT application. And not only that, you're going to have to usually flesh out your provisional and make it into a full non-provisional patent application. And so, you have to add claims, you're going to add a lot more details, you'll probably add drawings. So you're going to have a lot of expenses coming up a year later if you want both international protection and U.S. protection. And this last point, investors and others may not take you as seriously. I've heard that, but I've never really seen it. Because I think most investors understand that non-provisional patent applications are very expensive. And so they understand if you file a provisional first, you're doing that just to try to, not shell out too much money up front. And so that's something you have to be aware of, that people may not take you as seriously if you have a provisional, but I've never really heard of my clients running into that problem. But it's, you don't have to hire an attorney to file a provisional. You could do it yourself. As long as you have $70, you could write on a we don't use grocery bags anymore, the paper grocery bags, but you take an old grocery bag, write your patent application on it, submit that with $70, and you'll get a filing date and a serial number. And so in that case, investors probably won't take you very seriously if you show them a copy of this, thing that you hand scrawled. So, any questions? So, what are some benefits of non-provisional applications? Well, the first one I put down was it will be examined by the USPTO, and a determination will be made as to patentability of your non-provisional patent application. So, like I said earlier, the Patent Office will do a search, and then they'll issue a paper called an office action. 90% of the time, they'll reject all the claims. It's not as bad as it sounds because usually around 70 to 80% of the time it's pretty easy to get around that rejection. One of the main reasons is because the examiner's literally only spending around 13 to 15 minutes writing that office action because he has so much work in front of him that they just can't spend that much time on each office action. So what that means is they've done a very superficial analysis of your patent application and of the prior art. So they may have honed in on some key words and said, okay, we're rejecting your patent application because you've come up with a new type of tool. Well, we found these other patents that use the word tool, so we're rejecting it. So your patent attorney or yourself, if you're doing it yourself, if you read the prior art, if you read the patents that the Patent Office is using against you, a lot of times you can see and figure out a way to describe what distinguishes your invention from what they found in the prior art. And that's what I do. In paper, I make arguments as to why our patent application is distinguishable and patentable over the prior art and why the rejection should be withdrawn. And I would say around 70 to 80% of the time, I'm successful doing that. So if you file your non-provisional first, then you have a year from that point to file your PCT application, which could be important because you may need that year to try to figure out, is it worth it to file a PCT application? Your patent will issue sooner if you skip filing the provisional and go straight to the non-provisional, because when you file a provisional first, that year goes by and nothing happens at the patent office. They won't start looking at your patent application until you file your non-provisional. So if you want the patent office to examine it quicker, you probably want to skip the provisional and go straight to the non-provisional. Non-provisional, you also get patent pending status as soon as you file a non-provisional. Investors may take you more seriously if you file a non-provisional because they realize that you're putting your money behind your idea, a lot more money behind your idea than just what it would take to file a provisional. some disadvantages of non-provisionals. They're expensive and time-consuming compared to a provisional. And then you may receive a negative office action too soon. So you may get a rejection that you can't get around, and if you don't get around it, then your patent application will be basically abandoned, and you won't have patent pending status anymore. If you filed a provisional first, then at least you have 1 year where nothing's happening, and then you file your non-provisional, and you may have another year or two after that. So at least during maybe 2 or 3 years, you can say patent pending and sell your widget and be able to say patent pending. But if you skip the provisional and you went straight to the non-provisional, maybe after only 2 years, you get a final rejection that you can't get around, and you'll have to withdraw the patent pending status. You won't be able to say patent pending anymore. And that may be a very important marketing tool that you're using to be able to say patent pending. It may help your sales. And so that's a disadvantage if you file a non-provisional first. There's also, it's not on here, but if you're over, I believe you're over 65, you can file a petition for early examination. I think that's the age. Do you know?
Yep, 65.
65, yeah.
Almost there.
Okay, so I did that for a client who's over 65, and we got an office action within like 4 months, and it was a very strong rejection that was very hard to get around. And so that was a big disadvantage. The patent application was examined quickly, but we got a bad result. So you gotta be careful what you ask for. Next. So what should I file? Here's some questions you might ask yourself to try to figure out whether you need a provisional or a non-provisional. Do you need time to find investors? If you do, then maybe a provisional is the way to go. It gives you at least a year to find investors before you shell out the big bucks for a non-provisional. Do you need time to test the market? If you do, then maybe filing a provisional will be beneficial. It gives you a year. Do you need time to find a licensee? Same thing. Provisional gives you a year to do that. Do you plan on making and selling the invention yourself? I put down non-provisional there because if you're not looking for investors, if you're not trying to get a licensee, then it's probably cheaper for you just to go straight to the non-provisional patent application and not spend the money on a provisional first, because you're not looking for someone else to fund your patent application. So if you're going to pay for it yourself, then you might as well just go straight to the non-provisional, save some money. Continuing with what should I file? Do you need to delay cost? Then filing a provisional is a good way to do that. Do you want to save the total output of money? And I'm referring to patent attorney fees, patent agent fees, and government filing fees also. Well, if you want to save the total output of money, then you should file a non-provisional, because then you skip the amount of money you're paying for an attorney to prepare the provisional and the government filing fee for the provisional. Are you aware of infringers that you want to stop with your patent application once it issues? If you are, then you should probably file a non-provisional first, so hopefully your patent application will get issued quicker, and then you start suing them for patent infringement. A lot of people don't understand this. A patent application does not give you the right to sue anybody for patent infringement. You have to have an issued patent before you can sue them for patent infringement. You could, if you have a patent application and you know someone seems to be infringing what's described in your patent application, you could send them a letter or call them up and say, look, I filed a patent application. Once it issues, I will sue anybody who's infringing our patent rights. And that may, get that person to stop infringing, but you cannot legally, you can't file a lawsuit until your patent's actually issued. And in fact, people say, okay, I'm protected when I file a patent application, right? Kind of. The only real protection you have is you can say patent pending on your product or your marketing materials. You also have a filing date, but you really can't stop anybody from copying your invention if you just have a patent application. Because you can't sue them for patent infringement. There's no legal recourse you have until you have an issued patent. If someone files a patent application after your filing date, then you do have priority over that person, and so your patent will be owned by you, and you could say their patent application was filed after mine, therefore their patent should be invalidated. And that's another way you're protected. But your product that you're selling is not really protected as long as you have a patent application pending. You can't stop anybody from copying you.
Does the patent office work sequentially? I mean, is it all based on the date? So, for example, if I say you're infringing me, I've filed, could they run and file a non-provisional for the same thing, and then it maybe gets to an examiner faster, or it doesn't get rejected, or?
Yeah, that doesn't matter. What matters is who filed first. Whoever files first on the same subject matter will have priority, and their patent will be the one that rules the day. There's also something else you can do. If you know someone's infringing what's disclosed in your patent application, there's a petition you can petition the patent office to get earlier examination based on that you know someone else is infringing. And so the patent office will put your patent application near the front of the line. Yes, sir.
So when they use the term not a PCT contracting state,
Yeah.
does that mean a country that doesn't participate in the PCT?
Kind of.
Like they'll list something like Yemen.
Yeah.
As and they're like, oh, that's not a PCT contracting state. So that means if I get a PCT, people in Yemen can infringe and no one will care because
Well,
they're in Yemen.
that has to do with it depends on each country. You have a similar situation with Hong Kong and China. So China is a PCT state, but Hong Kong is not because there's a dispute between China and Hong Kong as to who owns Hong Kong. But so for some of these countries, if you comply with the PCT dates, like you file your PCT application within 1 year of your first U.S. application, even some of these non-contracting states will abide by the fact you filed the PCT, but you may have to jump through additional hoops to make sure you're protected in Yemen. It depends, and each country is going to be different, especially for the non-contracting states. And probably most of these non-contracting states are probably not worth a lot of patent expense anyhow. But Hong Kong is a different story. Hong Kong is probably pretty important.
So don't invent your dog again.
All right, I went through this quick, so that's it. Any questions? The patents, trademarks, copyright? Yes.
In terms of, you said your fee is, for example, $5,000 for the non-provisional, but you said 90% of it gets rejected. Do you then charge by the hour to write the
Yes.
the responses?
Yes, unfortunately, yeah. So I charge for my time. Most patent attorneys and agents do. Yeah, so that can cost anywhere from, my hourly rate's $3.25 an hour. It's on my website. So responding to an office action can take anywhere from half an hour to 10 hours or more. And the more complicated an office action is, like for instance, if they use 15 references to reject your patent application, if I have to go through all 15 references, I'm going to have to charge for my time and come up with arguments as to why your invention is distinguishable over all those 15 references. It's going to take a lot of time.
Usually takes about 10 hours.
No, that's a range. No, it can take anywhere from half an hour to 10 hours. If there's a short restriction requirement where the patent office may come back and say, hey, you have what looks like 4 inventions in your one patent application. We're going to make you restrict your application to one of the 4 inventions. That might only take a half hour of time to respond to that because all we're saying is, okay, we pick invention number 1. Yeah.
So the patent office gave me an office action, rejected the patent saying it was obvious.
Yeah.
It was an algorithm that was published in a peer-reviewed journal, and I worked really hard on it, and I thought it was not obvious. How do I prove to the examiner that it's not obvious?
So it depends on exactly what the rejection was, but a 103 rejection normally is where the patent office takes two or more prior art references and combines them and saying, okay, what's disclosed in your patent application is obvious because if you take these two inventions and combine them, we get yours. Is that what happened in yours?
Yeah, but we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Well, yeah, but if that's what they've done, if they've combined two different references to say, okay, we have all the elements of what's in your claim, a good argument often that I found is if you can find a reason why combining those references doesn't make any sense, that's a good way around that 103 obviousness rejection. When you say obviousness, I jump to the 103 statute, which is 35 USC 103, and that's the obviousness part of the patent law. And basically, that's what you're trying to do is you're trying to, well, first of all, what you do is when they make an obviousness rejection, they're saying, okay, we're rejecting claim number 1 in your patent application because all the elements of that claim were found in these two or more references. So the first thing I always do is it true? Are every element in your claim disclosed in those two or more references? And I go very carefully. I look at your claims, and then I look at the references. Is every element there? A lot of times it's not there. A lot of times the examiner just says it's there, but it's not really there. So if one of the references or elements in your claim is not there, it's not a proper 103 rejection, which is an obviousness rejection. Does that make sense?
I thought there was something in there about a term involving somebody skilled in the field.
The person,
the obvious connection. And then I thought, maybe the patent examiner is like Albert Einstein. They're just a genius. They see this
so it's possible
obvious.
they may have said, oh, it would have been obvious to do what you're describing, and maybe the patent office did not point out to any particular reference. That's possible. I would have to look exactly at what you've got. But one way around that is you get a declaration of an expert, which you would be an expert in the field if it's your invention, and say it's not obvious because no one's ever done this particular thing before, and I've reviewed all these periodicals and scientific journals, and no one's ever done this thing that I'm doing right now, and then that would put the burden on the examiner to find a reference that discloses that exact element that he says was obvious, if that's what he's doing. Because I've seen that where an examiner says, oh, this is obvious, I don't really need to find a reference because it's so obvious it's out there.
What's the full reference to that code, the USC?
35 USC 103 is the obviousness part of it. 102 is the, I can't think of it. What's the word? Novelty, yeah.
And what is the novelty part?
So 102 is generally when they make a rejection using only one reference, and they're saying, okay, all the elements of that claim are in this one particular reference, and we're making a 102 rejection.
I don't understand that. You're only, the 102 is.
So 102 basically, so let's step back. So for your invention to be patentable, it has to be new, useful, and non-obvious. Okay, the useful test is very easy to pass. So new and useful are usually the sticking points. New means, is there any invention out there that has all the elements of your invention, that predates your invention? If there is, then your invention is not new, not novel. And so that's what 102 is talking about. So 102 generally means, is there one reference out there that has all the elements of the claim that's at issue? And then and your invention also has to be non-obvious. So that means, would a person of ordinary skill in the art just know to, let's say you have an invention of attaching a photograph to a wall. And so your invention is, you're the first one to come up with nailing a nail into a wall and hanging a picture on the wall. and you get a patent on that. And then a year later or so, someone comes up with the invention. Okay, I'm going to take that, but I'm going to improve it by using a screw. I'm going to screw a screw into the wall and hang a picture on it. Patent office might say, "Oh, that's an obvious solution. Anyone who's a carpenter would know that a screw is basically a very similar device to a nail. It's a connector. That's an obvious improvement, therefore it's not patentable." So that's one way to think of obviousness, not obvious.
How do you find the quality of the people in the patent office, particularly in arcane things like Doug may do, you know?
Well, I don't think it's that bad. A lot of people complain about it. Most of the time, I find that they'll work with me. Sometimes you have to, call their supervisor if you think if they're willfully not trying to understand your invention. Sometimes you have to file an appeal, and then they'll back down, or the appeal board will make them back down.
How approachable are those guys? Can you call them up or do you have to do
Generally,
everything?
yeah.
You
Generally.
can't call.
Usually on the first office action, they're a lot more helpful than after the second office action. So you basically, for your filing fee, you get 2 office actions. So you pay $430 as a micro entity. So the patent office will do 2 office actions. So the first one will normally be a rejection. You respond to that. You might get a second rejection or a second office action. If you call them after the second office action, a lot of times they won't want to spend a lot of time with you because they've already allotted the points that they're going to get from your patent application, because they're on a point system over there at the patent office. And so they're only allowed to, they only want to spend a certain amount of time on each patent application in order to meet their quotas. But if you call them on the first office action to try to explain, my invention is way different than these references, they're usually very receptive to hearing from you, I think.
Yeah, the idea being sometimes speaking interactively is a lot more efficacious than sending letters back and forth.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. And maybe even going into the office might be the best way.
Yeah, face to face.
The only issues I've really had, I think, is with foreign language speakers, when it's really hard to communicate with them. And that's really the only time I've had any real problems.
And I suppose the office you work with is in DC?
The patent office is in DC, but a lot of people work from where they live. So a lot of people live in various parts of the United States. So my understanding is after you've had so many years at the patent office as an examiner, you have an option to work wherever you want, basically, and just dial in.
Huh.
Yes, sir.
So with your, say you get the patent, provisional, then you have a logo and a name to your product. Are those each separate things you would have to patent?
So a logo and a name generally would be a trademark.
Okay.
All right. And I do that also, but yeah. So a trademark is an identifier of the originator of the goods or services. So like Roto-Rooter, when you hire a Roto-Rooter plumber, that they're coming from that company associated with Roto-Rooter. That's a trademark, Roto-Rooter. Or like Levi's is another famous trademark. When you buy a Levi's pair of jeans, you're getting a certain quality of jeans. So for your device, if you have a logo associated with your product, people eventually will come to identify that product with your company or you personally.
Okay.
And that's a trademark. That's a lot cheaper than a patent generally. For me, what I charge to prepare and file a trademark application is $1,000 plus the government filing fee, which is usually $225.
So the logo and the name would be one and the same?
So names, I imagine is a word, right?
Yes.
And then a logo, some artwork that goes with the name, or maybe the name will be on top of a drawing, or maybe inside the drawing. So there's a couple different ways to go about that. So we can file one trademark application that covers both the logo and the word, all right? What that means, though, is if you want that trademark to remain valid for as long as possible, you cannot change the logo at all or the word. And we have to file papers every 10 years basically to maintain your trademark. So if over the next few years your logo changes or you decide, I don't like that logo anymore, I just like the name. Well, 10 years from now, when you file more paperwork to maintain that trademark, we have to submit evidence that you're currently using that trademark. If that logo is no longer part of that word, trademark, the patent office is going to say, this is a different trademark.
Okay, so it'd be like Harley Davidson or Briggs and Stratton.
So,
Stays with it.
well, one option is to file 2 trademarks. There's a long way of getting there. Is
Okay.
file one just for the logo and one just for the word, but it costs twice as much. But in that way, though, if your logo changes, at least your word mark is still protected. Or if your word mark changes but you keep the logo, your logo is still protected. Yes, sir.
So Mike, I had a follow-up question from Doug's situation, right? But let's say he comes up with an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
It's new and now it's patentable. He goes through the whole process of applying for, so either way, provisional or non-provisional, and he has something going, right? Next step, he goes to Apple, and he wants to license the technology to them, or the software or his algorithm to them. Now, when you deal with a large company like Apple, or you walk into a room and there are 100 people sitting there, and they say, "Hey, here's my legal team."
Yeah.
And you are an individual. How do you make sure that you have some kind of protection at that point? Because from their point of view, it turns into almost like a business decision, right? Well, we'll infringe and we'll do whatever we want for the next 5 years, and there's no way he can sustain that barrage right now in the courts. So how do you handle those kind of situations?
Well, what I've found from my clients is that if you file a patent application first, that'll get you the most protection. So if Apple tries to steal your invention, if they try to file their own patent that covers the same invention, you'll have priority over them. But if they decide to infringe your patent application, because you don't have a patent yet, you're still waiting for the patent office to issue a patent, it's possible they could do that. But my understanding is legitimate, not ethical, but business people who are trying to make money, rather than infringe someone's patent or just steal an idea and then worry about patent infringement when the patent issues, a lot of times they'll just want to make a deal with you, and that's cheaper than just trying to screw you over on purpose.
Well, yes and no, because in my own personal experience, what they also tend to say that, well, even if the patent is issued, somebody can always contest it.
Yeah.
And so they use that as a vehicle to harass you and then say, okay, I got much deeper pockets. Let's see who outlasts who.
You're right. That's possible.
And most of the patents are contestable, given the amount of time people are willing to spend to tear it apart and things of that sort.
It's possible. It also depends on the invention. I mean, is your invention something that's really patentable, or is it a close call? Is it very close to something that's already out there? So maybe your invention is not patentable, and maybe that's why Apple's pushing back against you, saying your invention is not patentable. We don't want to deal with you because we don't think you should get a patent. That's possible. I don't know how to avoid that situation, but I think Shark Tank teaches a lot of good lessons. If you're able to make a little bit of money with your own invention, and you can show Apple that, look, you on your own or with a small little company, you're able to make some money, Apple would be a lot more interested in dealing with you rather than you just walk in there with a patent application and say, I have this great idea, it's going to make you a lot of money. If you're able to show them that you've made a little bit of money, at least on your own, they may be more interested and may take you more seriously and not try to just steamroll you.
Right, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
On the same question, what do you think is more defendable, a software patent or a business process patent?
Ooh,
Which sucks less?
which sucks less. The laws are changing. I mean,
Yeah, I know. It's
it's
the Amazon's one click, and they've been using it for 20 years.
there's this case called Alice that's out there that's
And Bilski?
yeah, it's tough. Business process versus software. I would say software is probably a better value for your money at this point, as long as you can make the results of that software something tangible.
Mhm.
So it's not just some sort of,
A concept.
not a high level concept that's not something a person can touch. And then you run into an Alice problem. But if it helps people and it's not just manipulating numbers, then you have a better chance of the patent being defendable, I think.
Wasn't it about being too abstract?
Exactly. So abstract to me means something you can't touch. It's numbers, maybe manipulating numbers that have no basis in the physical world. So like risk, allocation of risk, that's what Alice was about. The allocation of risk that's so abstract. What is risk? What can you touch it? You really can't. But if you could make it less abstract and more concrete, then you have a much better chance of the patent issuing, and I think defending it later.
Also, that aspect of merely implemented on the computer, right? If you were doing a process, but it was merely implemented on the computer versus doing it manually, and then you said, okay, I'm going to not do it manually, I'll do it on the computer, then it's not patented.
Well, yeah, that's especially true for business methods, because I mean, if you take what like insurance writing, which used to be all done on paper, you simply transport that work to a computer, but you're doing the same thing. That's a classic business method that shouldn't be patentable.
But it shouldn't be patentable?
Should not be patentable. If it's just merely doing it on a computer, that's the only change. Is you're shuffling paper, but now instead of shuffling paper, you're doing it on a computer. That's what the courts and the patent office said is something that should not be patentable.
Was it the Alice case?
It was before Alice.
That was Bilski.
Yes, sir.
When your invention has clear and important applications for the military, I understand that they have the right to come and take it away from you, which I understand as being old enough to have stuff taken away from me during the Second World War. But in current practice now, when you have something that is clearly and importantly applicable for the military, is part of their discovery process when they see your application come in? How do they discover that you've
That's an ITAR.
invented this thing? Are you as an attorney obligated to call the Department of Defense and say, listen, you
No.
guys really need to know about this?
I'm not. So what happens is when you file a patent application, you'll get a filing receipt, and along with that filing receipt, you usually get what's called a foreign filing license, which says you're allowed to take your U.S. patent application and file for foreign patents. What that means is someone at the patent office has examined your invention to make sure that it's not something that would hurt the security of the United States if you filed for international patents, or if you disclosed it to another government by filing it in their patent office. So someone at the patent office, before you get the foreign filing license, has made determinations, and generally it's a determination that, oh, there's nothing here that we have to worry about. You can do whatever you want as far as monetizing your invention. I guess in some cases they may not give you the foreign filing license, and in some other cases they may come back and say, we're going to have to stop you on your patent application because you got state secrets here or something that's going to hurt the security of the United States. I think under the Bill of Rights you have the right to be compensated for it, but I've never run into that.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, they take it.
They take it
Does
and they
it
pay you
compensate
whatever
you?
they want.
What?
They essentially pay you what,
Well, so they do pay you.
and it can be real estate or,
Yeah. So,
in our case, it was an airplane. They said,
but they compensate you, and you may think it's unfair, but the government's going
Yeah,
to
too
claim
bad.
it's fair.
you know, it's,
So we see new rules that come into play that make it illegal to post blueprints for a 3D printed gun online. But can I patent my 3D printed gun? And then it's unfettered by copyright?
Well, I'd have to see what the law is about the blueprints.
It was an ITAR thing. They were using Cold War epoch
Yeah.
rulings to keep people from posting plans on for 3D guns, like the Liberator gun. You
Yeah.
remember that? And it was a 3D printed gun you could take through metal detectors
Airports,
because
yeah.
there was no metal in it, ostensibly, but there really was. And so then, the ITAR thing came in and they said, okay, we're going to block your ability to publish the 3D printed gun plans.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I know a little bit about like when marijuana used to be illegal. A lot of times you could not get patents on devices that could only be used for illegal purposes, like maybe a bong. One way around that was, you can smoke tobacco in a bong. But so I guess if the laws are written correctly, I guess it's possible that your patent application could be determined to be illegal somehow, and then you lose your right to that patent. I'm not running into that too often. I've never run into that. I've written a patent for a bong the inventor had, but we got around the illegality of it by saying it could be used for many things, not just marijuana. Any other questions? All right, well, thanks, guys. You've been a great audience.
Thank you.
So just wanted to wrap things up. In our next presentation, we're going to have the director of the Angel Investor Forum do a presentation for us, and I've got that here on the website. I'll bring that up for you. Oh no, we're installing updates. Stop that. Yeah, and we're going to install the updates without asking you first. So if you go to inventus.org, you should be able to see our future presenter, Mary Rourke, and Mary Ann Rourke is President and Managing Director of the CVG, which is the Connecticut Venture Group, and she's also now the Director of the Angel Investor Forum, and she should be presenting for us for our next meeting next month, last Tuesday of the month. Thank you all for coming. I don't know if anybody here is interested in heading out after the meeting for a snack, but I won't be able to join you. So, anybody here interested in doing that? No? Okay. Well then, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Did you know Linda Gilbauer quit? She's no
Oh.
longer with the IP clinic.
She's no longer? I didn't know that because I was going to have her come and do a presentation.
I see, 828.